Welcome back. I'm Sam Hedden, and today we have a man who wears many hats who's in the Twin Cities. His name is Bick Smith. He's been a writer, a director, a reporter, producer. I don't think I could name all of the things that he's done in his career. And so I would really like you to meet Bick Smith. Hi, thanks for joining me.
Sam, hi, good to see you. You look great. And congratulations on your show. This is great.
Yeah, it's been a ride. It's been fun. I guess why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Are you from Minnesota, or are you a transplant? Or
I'm a transplant. I was born near Chicago and lived there for a few years, and then ended up moving to the South, and then up through the East Coast up into New England, where I spent many years up in Vermont, farm country, and then went to college in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes area, Ithaca College. And that's where I ended up going into full-time radio. When I dropped out of school, I ended up taking a full-time job doing overnights at an AM radio station, playing music. It was fun, you know, you're 20 years old and you're cranking out the tunes. So I got my start in broadcast actually when I was 16.
Welcome to the Times Bar and Cafe in Minneapolis. It's KLBB Sessions at the Times. I'm Bick Smith. Tonight, a tribute to singing great Rosemary Clooney, starring Sue Tucker and her quartet, along with a couple of guests. Recorded live at the Times, a very special night dedicated to the memory of Rosemary Clooney, with Sue Tucker and her quartet. Arnie Fogel joined in with Slow Boat to China, How About You, and I Can't Get Started With You. We also had the pleasure of hearing Sue duetting with Maud Hickson.
So radio was the start for me, and then eventually I got into television work as a reporter and an anchor and a weatherman in New York. And in 1990, I had just moved to Syracuse and was producing their 11 o'clock newscast, which is, and you've produced, and for TV producers, news producers, it's a difficult job when you're trying to line up a half-hour show and you're dealing with anchors, weather people, reporters. And back then we weren't using internet. So everything was very, you type out your scripts on not triplicate, but 5 pieces of carbon paper. And you'd have 5 copies of everything that you were putting out there as a writer for these newscasts. And you'd have to distribute those out to the various people who would put them on a teleprompter and put them in for the director. And so the producing job, and if there's anybody out there who's produced TV news, it's thankless, you know that, but it teaches you a lot. And so you kind of learn under fire. So in 91, I decided I would just leave upstate New York and move out to Los Angeles to be an actor. And so I drove across the country, did that whole thing, and drove out on, interstate right next to Route 66. And, you're staying in these places, great material, if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever taken long road trips, but man, there's some good stuff. I got out to LA and I lived there for almost a year, working with NBC and and Paramount and whatever else I could do. But no regular work was coming. So I ended up using contacts that I had here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and got an offer to come up and produce a morning show on KDWB radio back in 1992.
Wow.
So that's how I ended up here. And anybody who's been in radio might be able to also know, unless you've been fired 2 or 3 times, you really haven't been in radio. And so that was my second time being fired within 6 months. So here I was in this brand new town, and what am I going to do? So you take short order cook jobs, you do work at a greenhouse, you do whatever you can, do a little theater, and then eventually get into other work. So that's kind of what led into all this through those years.
I have to ask, that's quite the adventure, and I imagine that took years to go from point A to point E. Which one was your favorite? Like, if you had to pick one of those jobs, which one was probably your favorite?
Probably my favorite job was working in a small city in upstate New York when I got my first TV job. It was an NBC affiliate in Elmira, New York. Same affiliate that 2 or 3 people in the Twin Cities have worked at. Amelia over at Channel 4 and a former Fox 9 feature reporter worked there. This was a really good station in this small Rust Belt city. And I worked there as an anchor and reporter and did everything. You learn so much, and I think that was why I enjoyed that time the most. It was a transition, but I learned so many new things and met so many really interesting people and friends that I still have today. So I think that was the one.
So when you moved to Minneapolis, you said you kind of picked up various jobs like acting and
Yep.
like different stuff like that. I know for a fact that you did stuff at the caves. So
Yep.
could you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Sure. I started at the Wabasha Street Caves in 2000. I was bartending over there, and I started doing some tours and some marketing work. And we started those caves. If you don't know the story now, I mean, these were caves that were dug out in the mid-1800s for their sandstone. And then in 1933 became a nightclub. And so very well-known criminals of the time, the Dillingers, the Carpuses, the Barkers, were known to frequent this place called the Castle Royal. And so it was it was a nightclub for about 7 years. And then it went back to mushroom farming, and then it became a nightclub in the 70s and 80s. And then it closed down again. And then these people bought it in the early 90s and opened it up again. So by 2000, I ended up working there. My wife, Cynthia, had been working there already. And it just sucks you in. This history of St. Paul is just amazing. And ever since, I've just been into that. Now, if people weren't aware, those caves are being, the owners are selling them, and they're going to be done there at the end of November of this year. So they're kind of phasing some stuff out. There are still some tours going on there right now.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that there's still tours. I think it's a very large part of what makes St. Paul unique. Yeah. If people didn't know, swing dancing has been an amazing part of that I think for me, for 15, 16 years, but hopefully maybe new owners might think it's just as valuable. You also do short films. You write, you produce, you direct. What got you into doing short films?
There's a guy over at Channel 4 whose name is Sean Skinner. He is the head of, he's the chief photography guy at CCO. Sean was an intern for me at KDWB. He was still in high school. And we used to abuse Sean in such a way that, because the intern comes in and on the morning show you say, okay, Sean, we need you to go to the Whitney Hotel and wake up this baseball star at 6:30 in the morning. And we need you to rap on his door. Sean, we need you to go to the lake and swim out and get this, so it would be fun just giving him a hard time. Well, now Sean has gotten me into filmmaking, and It's been it's been so much fun because I've worked on probably 8 or 9 pieces with him. And so the short film thing is, it's very addictive. There's so much talent in this town, in this area, in the state. The technology is relatively inexpensive. It's accessible, and people like creating. Now, COVID has thrown a whole big change into a lot of this, as we all know. But I believe the short film world will survive. It's changing, but I think there's still plenty of work that's getting done around here, despite the COVID.
I completely agree with that. I'll first of all give a shout out. Hi, Sean. Give you a shout out first of all. Second of all, I'm glad that you think that the short film industry will keep going. That's a good thing to hear, considering all the changes, like you said. Since we're on the topic, what do you think might actually change for like filmmaking? You've been in a little bit of TV, you've been films, you've done short films. What do you think it's going to be like once things kind of settle?
Well, obviously, we're still getting used to the idea 4 months in of how to distance and what's shootable and what isn't. My company, Cybick Productions, which does a lot of website and industrial safety videos and things like that, we a little bit of everything. We've been a little wary about shooting on location, although we do have several projects that are coming up. But you have to be very, very careful about how you plot everything out. Your crew needs to be of limited size. You've got to have your safety protocol, which we have, which we put out there on social media all the time. I think work will get done. I think it's going to change the structure of some scripts out there. I think there's going to be smaller casts, fewer intimate scenes in a lot of these things. But again, we're still transitioning in all of this. We don't know what fall is going to bring, although I think a lot of people assume it's going to be a lot like it is right now. So leading into the film festival season, which, you've got your South Dakota Film Festival, you've got your Catalyst Festival up in Duluth, you've got Z-Fest around the corner, beginning of next year. You don't know how much of that's going to be online, if all of it will be, and you don't know what the material is going to look like in there. So again, we're just kind of playing it day to day.
Makes complete sense. And I suppose doing those industrial videos, if you want to say that again, we can find you at Cybick Productions.
It's Cybick.com, Cybick.com. It's Cybick Productions. And yeah, we're working on a bunch of different projects right now. It was very quiet for a while, but I think a lot of us, went through that. But that's the place where we do our work, and we get some short films done also under that banner.
What are some of your favorite short films that you've done? Obviously, I've seen your page. And
Yep.
it's insane. There's a long list of everything. And I have to ask, which has been some of your favorite short films that you've produced or that you've done?
I would go back. In 2011, we created a movie, Cybick did, called Gangsterland, which was a 41-minute movie with some documentary features too about St. Paul, Minnesota gangsters in the 1930s. Worked with some great people, and that was so much fun, just running, as they say in our business, run and gun, get out there. You get these scenes very much where these gangsters talk to you as if they're still alive. And we had so much fun doing that. In the short film realm, there was a movie that Sean dragged me into, Sean Skinner. The same year that we released Gangsterland, it was called Ellen's Handler, and I worked with Amanda Day and some other folks on that one, and we had a hoot. And that film has been around for years and still gets shown.
Okay, no, I understand. I gotta go. You're set back there? Is everything the lighting is?
Yes, you can. Gorgeous. Are you beautiful? You are beautiful. Everyone else is just a loser, but you are the world-class fingers.
You've had a very illustrious career.
Well, I'd like to think I still do. I started my career, I guess I was about 13. At that point, I knew these hands were destined for greatness. I started getting asked to do hand jobs all over the world. My hands were full, so to speak. That's really when I realized I needed my own handler.
Should I be looking at you or the camera? Les Ollinger. Title? Handler? I guess that's the correct term. I just wish I knew what that meant before I answered that ad.
When your hands are your livelihood, you have to be very careful with what you do with them. My handler helps me with the things I wouldn't dare do with my own hands.
Oh yeah, it's really a dream come true.
This is my right and my left hand man.
If she only knew my true secret. I'm a driving instructor.
When you make your living with your hands, sometimes it's just you and your hands. And your handler's hands, too, of course. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of lovers. They just, they just come and go. I must admit, I do take the occasional break to enjoy the finer things in life. Okay, now focus in a little bit. Can you, yeah, just.
All right, 10 minutes, everybody. Get to your places.
That is the magnet I am supposed to be modeling, you asshat! This is the most unprofessional set I have ever been on! Don't touch my hands!
Tell me about it. She is a handful.
I was just kidding. Don't touch my hands.
Hands down, she is the biggest bitch I've ever worked for.
Okay.
Now here she goes. She'll act like she doesn't want to show him.
Oh, I don't do that. I really don't do that.
But she always does.
Well, I suppose a little peek wouldn't hurt anybody.
Dear Craig, screw you and your list.
we've done a bunch of different kinds of films. The latest one that we did for Z-Fest, which we shot up at Conduit Sound in Northeast Minneapolis, was called Sugar Blasters. It was a takeoff of 1980s ad and production people on a big sound stage shooting these goofy 1980s cereal commercials for kids. And so
I remember seeing that and going, what in the world?
Yeah.
If you know John
And
Lampson, if you've ever worked with him,
I haven't, but I know who he is.
he also thoroughly enjoyed that as well. It was great.
We shot the commercial part of it, the little kid cereal scenes separately. I had to wear a green chroma key suit, which there's an experience. Don't picture it, Sam. Don't do it.
I try not to.
And then we did the bulk of the movie was a one shot. So
Wow.
we started, and it was about 6 straight minutes of conversations as everybody darted from spot to spot. And it was choreographed, and it was a lot of fun.
I can only imagine, if you haven't seen it, to the audience out there watching this, I'm sure that my wonderful producer will probably put a small clip in if you have a clip to show, but it's every overly sugared child's dream.
Right. Right. Some good language in there too.
Yes, language. Some language.
Yeah, just a bit.
But it was worth it. It was very trippy. You were like, whoa, what is going on here?
This sucks. Ow! I'm Blast Off! I've come from far away to save you from boring Earth breakfasts! Okay! Ready? 3, 2, 1! Blast Off! Sugar Blasters is an out-of-this-world cereal with rocket ships, stars, and marshmallow comets! Sugar Blasters is a nutritious part of this complete breakfast! That was out of this world! Sugar Blasters! Take a blast in the mouth!
Yeah.
But I know people thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know how hard that I've seen you and Cynthia work, and I've worked with you, and you guys work your butts off.
Yeah, and it's a pleasure working with people like you who realize you have to, because you gotta, when we were shooting on a school referendum package of a bunch of different short videos where you joined us, and yeah, it's just get it and go. And that's where I think that for me, the TV news background, because you don't waste time shooting and editing and producing, that sort of came in handy for a shoot like that. So you were appreciated on that one.
I definitely enjoyed it. I think working with you and Cynthia is definitely a good experience just because of your level of experience and the ideas that you get, which makes me wonder for future projects. Have you been working on any scripts, or have you been working with anything you can tell us about?
Well, now you write, right?
Yes.
So at the beginning of the pandemic, I hit this dry spell of creativity. I couldn't imagine anything. There was nothing going, and that lasted 3 months. And I finally started getting back to writing a few ideas. We did a short film, a group of short films for the Isolation Film Festival. This was in March. Jason Schumacher, who's a pretty well-known producer and director around town and writer, put this festival together, and we all submitted movies for that. And that kind of got things loosened up a little bit. And so working on 2 or 3 other projects right now, and just not rushing, just trying to be patient a little bit and letting the creativity kind of come back. So
that makes sense. I've kind of heard that from some other people where it was more of everyone was just scared. But then on the other hand, some people like ignited more creativity and all they could do was just write.
Right. And it was, some people, I think, put too much pressure on themselves. We all spend a lot of time on social media, and there were numerous things going out on Facebook and such saying, this is the time to be really creative. You've got a pandemic, you're probably on unemployment, you've got time. Now's the time to make it happen. And you freeze up. You say, I should be doing all these things. Why am I not doing these things? Because something's not flowing right up there. So you really have to take the pressure off a little bit and allow to, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand about artists. It doesn't just happen. We all know that it requires the right formula.
You know, boys, the great Vincent van Gogh once cut off an ear and mailed it to his girlfriend. You know what he used?
Meat cleaver.
FedEx.
Smash the guy over the head with a pickle jar.
Where was I? Yes, I was going to torture you.
I'm an actor. It's Gator Gals is an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Look, we're very busy around here.
Have you been in the bathroom ever since I left this morning?
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus.
Have you ever dated an alligator before?
We've got trouble.
Right here in River City?
Can we not with this again?
Hey!
Oh!
Grab!
Just how good looking am I?
Are you serious?
What makes women want me?
You've done a lot all over between New York, Minneapolis, LA. Who has been your favorite person to interview?
To interview?
Or to get to like meet or talk to?
Well, I was lucky enough to interview a couple of different, on movie junkets out in Los Angeles. I interviewed the cast of Star Trek six.
Ooh.
I'm going to just tell you this right now. I didn't like William Shatner because he wasted my time on camera. Can you imagine that? Bick, what kind of name is Bick? What kind, that type of thing. But I love the rest of the cast, and Kim Cattrall was in that. She played a Vulcan in that cast, and she was a hoot. She was great. Mary Steenburgen. I interviewed Mario Cuomo, who was the governor of New York, back in Elmira. We did a public service show. I did half an hour with the governor. Great guy.
Wow.
Had a really good time. And I had also one where I interviewed Jay Leno on our 6 o'clock news in Elmira. He came to town to do a show, and I opened for him, introducing him. And so he gets on there and I say, we're with Jay Leno on the 6 o'clock news here in Elmira. And and of course, Jay is he's offering, well, Bick, what do you, and he's just riffing on me. And I just thought, this is embarrassing, but it's really fun. So, yeah. So there have been some interesting ones. I don't really have one that's sticking out, but it's cool meeting people out there that are big stars and finding out, in most cases, they're really just normal folks, and they appreciate normal conversation rather than it being, like that. So
instead of fangirling and going, oh my God, it's you, it's amazing. And just more like, hey, nice to meet you, hi. And then letting them riff all over you.
Right. That's just what they're going to do. So you got to let them do it.
This has been an amazing interview. He wears more hats than you could ever imagine and does amazing things here in the Twin Cities. This has been Samantha Hedden and Andy Watson producing. And now you know Bick Smith.
Or you can do it your way first, and then you can do it my way. I mean, we'll just
Shut
see which is better.
up.